I'm sorry for the delay in getting this video out, but to be totally frank with you, I just didn't fancy it. Now, before we talk about the embarrassment that happened at the Amex, before we talk about the idiotic and average manager that we have at the helm, and before we talk about the blood-sucking charlatans that exist in our boardroom, I think there is something else that we need to tackle, and that is the issue of Chelsea support, because something really weird is going on. There is a passivity to the Chelsea support that I've never known. All my life, Chelsea have had one of the most partisan and impassioned fans. From when I was a kid, I remember being in the stadium against Bruges, being in the stadium against Vicenza off the back of Mark Hughes scoring that goal. The footage that I've seen from the 1970 FA Cup final. Think about what Chelsea support means. Behind the goal at the San Siro when Dennis Wise scored, Chelsea support was always vocal, tribal, aggressive, loud, dedicated, all of the words that you want from a support. But something has changed. Something has totally shifted. The support that was running down the side of the goal when John Spencer ran the length of the pitch in Vienna is no more. We're calm. We're passive. We're accepting. And this could be the biggest trick that Clearlake have ever played on us, to somehow redefine what a supporter is, to reset the standards, to totally reimagine who we are as a club. It will allow them to do anything. And by anything, I ultimately mean leave Stamford Bridge, because something has totally changed. Like my mate who went down to Brighton yesterday, he said that he was in the ground trying to get anti-Clearlake songs going. Everybody was looking at him like he was mad, came the reply. That is so not in keeping with who we are. The Chelsea that have existed have always demanded a certain style and a certain commitment. It isn't about trophies. It isn't about that at all. When I was a kid, Chelsea went 25 years without a trophy. And we loved that team. We loved that team. Gavin Peacock, John Spencer, Frank Sinclair, Eddie Newton, that team were idolised. Yes, many of them didn't win a trophy. But it wasn't about that. It was about the commitment. It was about the relatability. And I honestly believe that installing this passivity in our support could be Clearlake's biggest victory, because the shift is unreal. We are in mid-February. We have won 2 games since Christmas. I mean, in that run, we've lost to Ipswich. We've drew with Sean Dyche's Everton team. We lost at home to Fulham for the first time in 50 years. And we have been battered twice by Brighton in 6 days. In the space of 6 days, we've been done by Brighton twice, launched out the cup, and then beaten and embarrassed in the league. For Brighton, it's brilliant. Like, it's just so annoying for me to say this because they're so insignificant. But for Brighton, this is better than anything they've ever done in their history. Like, this is the closest thing to a cup that they've ever done. They've beaten Chelsea twice. And I'm not even knocking it. I will always celebrate Chelsea beating Tottenham 4-0 twice in 3 days. I will always bring that up. It happened when I was a kid, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. But I will always say we beat them 4-0 twice in 3 days. It's creating history. Brighton have done it to us. Brighton have done it to us in the space of 6 days. And I just don't know what has happened. I just don't know what has happened, because if you see what has happened over the last 3 months at Chelsea and in the entire Clearlake run, it has been totally and utterly unacceptable. But, nobody is venomously demanding that the manager get sacked. Nobody is majorly protesting the owners. People are unhappy. People are finding it unacceptable. But generally, everybody's just plodding along, getting on with it. There isn't this outcry. Like, I remember being at Brentford away in their old ground before they'd done it up, and Rafael Benitez walking across the pitch. The footage is available on YouTube. You look at how Chelsea fans reacted to Rafael Benitez. I remember when Rafael Benitez was welcomed at home. He played Man City at home. He drew 0-0. And they came out and went, "This is Rafael Benitez, the new Chelsea manager." The vitriol, the passion, it mattered. We cared. I just can't understand what is going on. Like, even if you think back to the Super League. Like, people will mock when I say this, but it is true. Chelsea were the first club to do those big demonstrations and get the Super League called off. Chelsea were the first club to pull out because of fan power. And people like to mock me because I'm there and Petr Cech's having a pop at me and I'm looking angry and whatever else. But I'm proud of that. I'm proud that Chelsea had that. And I'm proud that Petr Cech swore at me. I don't care, because we did what was right, and we did what was right for our club. And we were great for that. Like, we really were. We had an edge. But I feel like we've been worn out. I feel like, when Tony Soprano talks about the impact of his mum on his dad, wore out a really tough guy, wore him out, turned him into a little nub. I think that's what Clearlake have done to our support. They have banned anyone they can. They have outpriced anyone they can. They have removed season ticket holders. They have done everything that they can to make the ground as non-tribal and non-partisan as possible. And that is why Stamford Bridge is now a morgue, because generally speaking, I'm speaking hugely generalistically here, but who makes a racket? In a football stadium, who makes a racket? I'm going to go young people, right? When I was young, you go in there, you make a racket. Now, everyone's knackered, right? But young people. Young people can't go. Young people have been priced out. Young people have been totally ignored by this ownership. Purposefully. There's a 5,000 ticket available. £5,000 ticket. There used to be season ticket holders in the West Upper. That has now become a corporate thing. You get a free pint with your £2.5 season ticket. Of course the people sitting in there are not making a racket. And the thing is, it's so short-sighted from their perspective, because if they want to create this painful, isn't it? This like tourist attraction of Stamford Bridge, the only reason that anybody will want to go to Chelsea and view it as a tourist attraction is because of people who go there, make a racket, make a spectacle. Nobody wants to go and sit with like no tourist wants to go and sit with loads of other tourists. There's no appeal in that. And it's so short-sighted. But I just don't know what is going on. Like, I really don't, because there is now this acceptance of how average we are. Like, everyone knew that we were going to get done by Brighton. Do you know what I mean? Like, Brighton fans have been flying at me, giving me a load of grief. You're like, I knew we were going to get beat. I knew you were going to beat us. There is now this passive accepting, and I'm guilty of it as well, by the way. Yeah, we're going to get beat. They're going to do us. Everybody that went down there, whether you're watching it on the telly or you were in that away and behind the goal, everybody knew. I mean, as a support, we've gone from like raucous and demanding to being tranquil. Like, nobody is really demanding Maresca's head. Now, look, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not even doing it. But it shows you a shift, doesn't it? Like, whether we should be saying Maresca out. You know, if I came out with Maresca out, and I'd be right in some way, it'd be justifiable. But nobody's doing it. And that is a shift. That is a change. I mean, when the standards are where they should be, even irrationally, our support would be demanding changes at every minor glitch. And this is a poxy season. So much of this season has been so poxy, and nobody's really saying anything. You know, you think about this unforgivable run that we have been on. Like I say, like, since Christmas, it's just been atrocious. 2 wins since Christmas. Go back just over a decade. Now, I'll tell you what, this will demonstrate the point perfectly, right? Talk about the run that we've been on recently. Think about the teams that we have been struggling against. Totally unacceptable. I remember going back now, to 2009, Scolari. I remember being in the away end at Old Trafford, and we were singing about getting Scolari out. It was the first time that we had lost an away game all season, and it was February. It was the first time that we'd lost an away game all season in February, and we're going Scolari out. Like, we got a win against Stoke. Lampard scored late. But everybody knew it was over. We got beat earlier that season as well by Liverpool. And it was the first time that we'd lost at home in the Premier League for 80-odd games, 4 years. And I think people started to go, hang on a minute, we don't lose at home. We lost to Liverpool, not a bad Liverpool team. I think it was, I forget who it was. We lost that game. People started to question Scolari. We were struggling in Europe a bit. People started to question Scolari. We went to Old Trafford. We got battered. 3-0, I think they beat us. And bearing in mind, by the way, we went to Old Trafford. Manchester United were the champions. In fact, it was 2009. They were the European champions as well. We already had a thing in us that we had to beat them because of what they did to us in Moscow. They battered us 3-0. Scolari out. Everybody had enough of Scolari. That was the standards. That's when the standards were through the roof. That's when we demanded excellence. That's when we demanded the best from everyone associated with the club. One away defeat, the first away defeat of the season. It came in February against the European champions. Scolari out. Look at us now. Oh my God, that's the example, isn't it? That is the example. I'm going to make a point of this in the comment, because that is the difference. In a season where we were doing all right. We had some great results. I think we battered AC Milan, I remember. Battered AC Milan. We went away to Bordeaux. We beat Bordeaux. We went away to Bordeaux and won Anelka. I remember being over there. Like, beat Portsmouth on the opening day. Deco. Battered Bolton. Like, good results. Far better than this season. 1 defeat. Scolari out. Standards. Because we could see that it wasn't working. Suddenly, this week, you've seen 2 of the worst performances you'll ever see at the same ground in the space of 6 days by the same team. Nobody's really that bothered. It was so predictable that we were going to go there and get smashed. Both games. Twice in a week by Brighton. It's so bad. And I tell you what, the golden age of Chelsea, it just feels like it's over. The sporting directors are a joke. We're chasing the game, we're bringing on George. No disrespect, but we're chasing the game, we're bringing on George. How anybody accepted selling Conor Gallagher, England's Conor Gallagher, to bring in the Championship's Dewsbury Hall, I do not know. I do not know. How a Nicholas Jackson injury can derail our hopes of finishing in the top 4 like this, I do not know. Let's remember how average Nicholas Jackson is. You know, we're suddenly reliant on somebody who scored, 14 goals last season. Like, that's Malouda numbers. That's Joe Cole numbers. Solomon Kalou would get those numbers from the bench. Frank Lampard would get double those numbers from the midfield. And yet we try and convince ourselves now that Nicholas Jackson's a good player. Like, it's fucking crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Nkunku's France international, so what? Average. So average. Doesn't want to be there. Should never have the luxury of wearing the Chelsea shirt again. Yeah, he scored 5 in 30 odd for Chelsea? It's ridiculous. Like, Chris Wood must have outscored him by 9. Every time Nkunku scores 1, Chris Wood scores 9 in the Premier League. Absolutely ridiculous. You know, I just don't know where we're going to go. But the idea of us winning trophies now is just so over. It's so Chelsea of old. And with this ownership at the helm, I think what we're going to either have to do is fight to get them out. And if people start singing anti-Clear songs in the away end, you're going to have to get stuck into it. Or it's going to have to be this begrudging acquiescence to redefining who Chelsea are. Because we won't win a League Cup. You know, people talking about like European. 3 years ago, virtually to the day, we're the best team in the world. That's official, by the way. 3 years ago. Now talking about losing to Brighton twice in 3 days. Twice in 6 days. Sickening.